Upon the outer rim lies the desolate wasteland known as Tatooine, a planet with no government and no law. Those living upon its dry husk are forced to contend with petty raiders, bandits, and thugs on a near daily basis. The denizens of Tatooine are a hardy bunch, however, and have lived thus far for centuries, beating back dangers from both the stars and the desert alike. Now, however, a new shadow has fallen upon the backwater planet, and the beleaguered people desperately call the Sector Rangers for aid.
Of course, the shadow of the Vector as it flies across the sky.
So,
I'm so kidding.
yeah. So I think we begin with a panned shot of Denon, and this is the planet that we have seen many times before. Get an orbital shot. It was the second most populous planet in the galaxy after Coruscant, and since the fall of Coruscant, it's become like the most. It's not like the official capital of the galaxy, but it's one of the biggest ones. And rolling into view, very much like the beginning of Episode 4, is an Imperial Star Destroyer. We get subtext: the SRSD Farseeker. It seems to be in I think, a very loose orbital docking cradle, orbiting around the planet, and a very familiar ship. The Far Ranger is currently pulling in beneath the Farseeker and moving into its central docking bay. There's a bevy of small ships all about the Farseeker, and you can see sparks from various parts of the hull where work is still going on, but in large part, the ship looks almost brand new. It has been 6 months since the Far Ranger managed to find and board the former Imperial Star Destroyer VECTOR. A full month of quarantine saw you all and the VECTOR quarantined in an as of yet undisclosed star system. Even you all don't know precisely where it was. I think Signal and a few high-ranking members of the Rangers know where that safe system was, but it's been kept confidential in case there may have been some trace left of the virus somewhere in the system when it was under decontamination. But you were eventually all free of the quarantine. And for the next 2 months, the ship was flooded with a very toxic radioactive gas, as the many mouse droids and other decon droids went to work. No living thing could survive aboard the vessel, and a small fleet orbited the VECTOR, ensuring that no one came or exited the ship. Eventually, though, the ship was considered sterilized, and it made the jump to Denon, where it was officially claimed by the Sector Rangers. In the months that it had disappeared, and while you guys were in quarantine, many important events have gone on in the galaxy. The showdown between the Sector Rangers and the Imperials in the Dornick system has since become known as the VECTOR incident. When you guys emerged, you heard about what would have happened, but you know, being in quarantine, you didn't hear a whole lot. The Sector Rangers decided that their best defense against the Empire impossible retribution was to get out ahead of the story, and they released all of the data in terms of like not exactly the biological specifics of the virus, but like the fact that there was a virus. It was on this ship that was floating in a system near in the Cornoct cluster. Basically, the relevant information, and put it out all over the holonet. They talked about how Imperial intelligence seemed to be involved, and that there was an active conflict aboard the ship. And the Imperials fired back by saying initially that they knew nothing about what was going on. The diplomatic response was pretty measured on the part of the Imperials, considering, the Imperials. There was a lot of rumors of the ramp up of fleets near their borders, especially the shipyards of Bilbringi, as well as Agamar. It seemed like they were potentially getting ready to either defend themselves or do something else, but nothing ever materialized from it. And it's been considered a little odd because as vehemently as they defended themselves, their defense kind of wavered off a little bit, and they've been very silent for the last several months. And in fact, Imperial space has been largely closed off for the first time in decades. Normally, Imperial space is one of the more safe, and I wouldn't say liberty-ridden areas of space, but the people there are generally not oppressed. They just willingly give up their freedoms for safety. At least that's how it's supposed to work. And the borders have been closed. Nobody's really quite sure what's going on in Imperial space, and the Corellian Confederacy soundly denounced the Imperials. I think the Hapens probably came to their defense, surprisingly. They typically don't take part in external politics, but they spoke up in their defense. I think the Mandalorians even weighed in. They've been getting a little bit more active in galactic politics in the last several decades, and
the Imperials purchased a lot of our munitions.
I think they took definitely a decidedly pro Imperial stance, but they also didn't denounce the Sector Rangers. I think they came out with a surprisingly more tactful approach than you would typically think the Mandalorians would take. I think they said that it seemed the Imperials were taking precautions.
Both sides.
Yeah, well, it seemed like to them that the Imperials were taking precautions to deal with a mess that was left by their predecessors, and it seemed to them that they were trying to clean up a mess left by the old Empire. While it also seemed like the Sector Rangers were acting in the good interest of everyone, and that both parties were trying to do what they thought was best. I think the Hutts cried foul on both parties and said that they believe that the Imperials are engineering a bioweapon to wipe out all of Hutt space, that sort of thing. The Chiss ascendancy has been just completely quiet. I think they listed their only statement was a statement of non-committal, saying we have heard these allegations.
I just imagine some Hutt, as such, the Vector should be handed over to Hutt
Oh yeah.
space.
Oh no, they totally levied a claim within 24 hours, some trumped up claim about how it should be salvaged, but because it was in neutral space and the closest system has a minor agreement with the Sector Rangers, and because the Sector Rangers really pushed hard this blame. The Imperials never pushed their claim on the Vector. I think everybody was holding their breath, waiting for it. There was a long period where it seemed like as absurd as it sounds, the Rangers might go to war with the Imperials. The Rangers aren't really a political entity. They don't really have fleets. But it sounded like that might be what it comes to, and it didn't materialize. It's rumored that the Rangers may have made some sort of deal with the Empire to avoid hostilities. We make sure that the virus is destroyed and we don't further embarrass you all. And I think hey, we'll take the ship. That's like I think like you don't push the issue of the ship. You already have plenty. And yeah, in the end, the Vector was claimed by the Sector Rangers and eventually renamed the Farseeker. That was it was actually a suggestion by one Roddick Concord. Some other things have definitely been happening. There's like in the wake of this, there's been a giant political uproar. The Rangers have seemed to have been seen to have been stepping upon the political stage for the first time, where they were before as a very widespread, mostly respected but not really well feared group. Like we have you guys have deals with people all over the galaxy. Now it's like, oh, these guys are actually starting to interact with the Imperials and stuff. They might only have a single Star Destroyer, but a single Star Destroyer is enough to basically subjugate most of these backwater planets. Now, even though you're a very minor power in terms of military power, you guys have like quite a lot of diplomatic pull. You have deals with more star systems than like any other political entity in the galaxy. Although they're not like firm deals, like they're not like you're not an empire by any means. You just have like alliances with them, and you have like a lot of clout. And the Sector Ranger star is seen to be on the rise, and as such, several more systems have begun agreements to formally like join or sign the Sector Ranger Treaty. And in fact, Belsavis has fully signed over. Where before they had a partial agreement, Belsavis Prison is now an official Sector Ranger facility. So you guys have your own prison planet.
Wow.
The Farseeker is now, I guess, over the last 3 months, since the Farseeker has been decontaminated, has been moved to Denon and has begun refit and repair in the Denon orbital shipyards. In the process, Denon HQ has basically moved to the Farseeker. The Farseeker has like the capability of transporting more than 40,000 individuals. Like that's the crew. Even moving all of the Sector Ranger personnel from Denon, you guys are going to be operating at a skeleton crew of roughly 15,000. The Star Destroyer is going to feel empty. Now, the Sector Rangers are mainly taking this opportunity because some have been theorizing like why are the Sector Rangers potentially pushing this issue with the Empire, and the reason is simple. Denon is a very powerful planet, and it's been growing in like diplomatic power since the Sector Rangers have begun their rise. But the Rangers have been, like, throughout history, tied to one empire or another, either the Galactic Empire or the Galactic the Federation of alliances. I can't remember the name for some reason. The New Republic, the Old Republic, but they've never been an independent entity, and they've always found themselves interfered with most governments. Like they end up getting restructured, and I think the Sector Rangers just want to be independent now, and they don't want Denon to control them. And so they've seen the Far Ranger as an opportunity to do just that, to have their own base of operations where they can project their power and enforce their treaty agreements with everyone. They're not fully moving off of Denon. They're keeping the old HQ as a training center. It's being renamed the Kesner Academy after Den Kesner, the Sector Ranger who died initially aboard the Vector. Yeah, everything's being relocated to the Farseeker. It's got enough space to basically house all of the Sector Rangers. It can house most of the Sector Ranger ships as they come and go, and which ships that they can't, they can kind of rotate docks. It's so big, in fact, that everybody, including you guys, can simply be assigned permanent quarters there when they are aboard. Like, it's essentially a small apartment. Everybody is a member. They have so much free space that you guys have been warned that, like, in a few years, if they ever manage to fill up the ship entirely, things might have to change. But there's so much extra room that for now, Sector Rangers have, like, basically rooms assigned to them, and if they need a place to stay, you have a permanent room aboard the Farseeker. That's definitely a thing. It also has a massive vehicle facilities for storage, repairs, stuff like that. It's still in the process of overhaul, but it's scheduled to be finished this week. And I think the Far Ranger has pulled in. I think Roddick has been somewhere else, and I'm going to ask you guys what you've been doing over the last, probably the last 6 months. We've covered at least what people were doing for the first couple months during quarantine, to some extent. But the Far Ranger's pulling up into the Vector / the Farseeker, and you've been ordered here. Your presence has been requested by Sector Chief Flourish Kron, who is in fact still your boss. And he said that he's got a new assignment for you all. You all is kind of a hard thing. It's mainly just Roddick and Bunko. And you've got new crew that are supposed to be assigned to you, and he just needs to brief you on the coming changes. So, the Far Ranger is being pulled up into the docking bay, and you have arrived.
Interesting.
Do you report immediately to the Sector Chief? It doesn't sound like he's actually expecting you immediately. You have been informed that you are expecting new crew. You haven't received the roster yet. It seems like Kron might be giving that to you. And he's actually requested a meeting with both Bunko and Roddick at the same time.
Yeah, Roddick will definitely eventually get off the ship and head up towards the Sector Chief. Sporting his new arm, of course.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Can you describe to us, like, what happened with Roddick in the months following the Vector?
Almost definitely, I had to go back and get my complete arm reworked after what happened. And in the end, I ended up installing a heavy industrial arm on it instead that I have integrated a power hammer into the fist on. It took me a while to find an arm that was of the right size and the right number of fingers, but I actually put an image in my character profile just for reference. But I figured I'd pick that up, and I think that Roddick has probably spent the last few months, since the surgery has technically gotten better, I guess rehoning his skills by taking a vacation to that planet that was hunting Sector Rangers, because I needed to go get some practice in with my new arm.
I remember you really wanted to go back there and lay down the law. That was an unofficial vacation, right?
Yep, I think I went on a.
Did you go back yourself, like alone, or did you go with somebody?
Honestly, after everything that happened, once I got my arm, I probably would have just gone off by my own for a few months.
So Roddick was just like vigilante on that planet for a couple months, like just
that's pretty
criminals
much exactly
disappearing every day.
That's pretty much exactly what I ended up doing.
Oh wow! So I think that was what planet was that? Was that Belgoroth? I think that was Belgoroth.
I'm pretty sure it was Belgoroth, yes.
Yeah, so I think like there's probably a report on Kron's desk when you walk in and maybe you flinch. It's like Belgoroth security report. He doesn't mention anything when you walk in, but like his eyes flick to it and to you, and he studiously doesn't say anything. Like you can just see like a list of missing persons. It's like probably like 33 people.
I follow Roddick up there.
Okay, so what is B been really up to since the quarantine? Like anything that she can discuss with the rest of the group? Did she take some time off? Did she go work for somebody else for a while, or?
Yeah, I've been following up on contacts that I've had, and also watching a bunch of space soap operas.
Nice.
While training, I guess, Product or whatever his name is.
Oh, Padak?
Padak.
What are you trying to train him in?
I think I'm training him in rifles, I think.
Oh, wow. Are you actually trying to get him to be a sector ranger now?
Well, I mean, he's a space janitor, so he can be extra security on the ship.
Okay. All right.
A droid can only be so much, you know.
Awesome. So you've actually had Padak with you. That's really funny. Something notable. I guess what happened to the old crew. Signal ended up staying on the Vector. His expertise was considered invaluable. Apparently, he really knows how to interface with old Imperial systems. Who knew? And Signal has been made chief engineer aboard the Vector, now the Farseeker. He's probably like the single most powerful droid in the galaxy. Like there's probably like some crazy ass assassin droid out there that has his own army, but like Signal's probably like the single most officially powerful droid. Like he's like the chief engineer of a freaking Star Destroyer. And it also happens to be the base of operations for the Sector Rangers, so that's like even more important. He's not the captain, but he's basically third or fourth in line for command. And he's responsible for keeping the Far Ranger or the Farseeker intact. I know that's going to get real confusing real fast, but that's how things worked out. The Far Ranger and the Farseeker.
And if anyone ever wanders into engineering, there's a shit ton of droids.
Yeah, I think there's been a global, or I guess a sector-wide pit droid shortage. They've just been going missing left and right. Some crazy wacko's been buying them off the shelves. You know, they haven't been purchased or produced in a century.
Years,
but yeah, the engineering complement of the Farseeker is like probably like 4,000 pit droids, and that's still not even half as much as what it should be. And there's 15,000 mouse droids skittering about, and I think the organics on the ship are always complaining about like they can take a step out of their room and just trip over a pit droid, and it probably actually happens. As far as the other members of your crew, unfortunately, REYLA was of course killed. I think like did you guys hold some sort of funeral?
I'm sure we would have once the smoke cleared
or something.
Commit her body to the stars. Perhaps.
Yes. So like where would you do this? Like on the Farseeker, like back on Denon?
I guess it would be whatever Will would say.
Did Rayla leave behind any indication how she would like to be disposed of? Because you unfortunately didn't disappear into a blue force cloud. Okay. Notably, Halleck has been very, very quiet since Rayla's death. Like he seems like a man disturbed by failure. I think you've been able to determine that he felt like it was either his destiny or Rayla's destiny that he teach her. He basically came 1,000 years through time, and like the fact that he found like another force sensitive, like he felt like it was destined that he pass on his knowledge to her. And now that she's dead, like I think it seems like he's without a purpose. So
Roddick
so
might
maybe
eventually show up and ask him if he how you people generally prefer your funerals. I know that burning seems like it was a popular thing, but I don't.
He just shakes his head and he says, "It's done differently everywhere you go." Honestly, she seemed to love the stars, and she seemed to love that spacecraft of hers. I think do you think that might be appropriate? Send her out the way maybe that way she could keep flying.
That could work as long as we could get it into hyperspace. I would hate for some scuzzy pirate to come across her ship and shut her.
You launched it in one way, no one will ever find it. It'll be 300-400 years before it could get to the nearest star system, and it'll pass through and be another 300 years. But we could put her into hyperspace. What does everybody else think of this? I guess what does Bunko think of this idea? And I guess Signal can weigh in too during this time, since Signal knew her.
I think we should just put her body into a suitcase and throw it into space and then sell the ship.
I think just Roddick, and I know Hal glares over at B with daggers.
Oh god, yeah, Roddick is not happy with that suggestion either. At all.
I feel that doctrine dictates that she be sent to the stars.
Right, so do you guys...
What she believes.
So do we load her up into the
and in the
N1?
absence of an official Imperial issue base coffin, her starfighter shall do.
So do we put her into the starfighter, and I think maybe attach it to the back of the Far Ranger and drift it out into space a little ways from the Farseeker, and maybe everybody's clamped onto the upper hull of the Far Ranger with mag boots in their spacesuits as Hal and maybe Roddick load Rayla into the cockpit.
Yeah, I'll probably throw her Sector Ranger badge into the cockpit too. Put it up on her dashboard before I depart.
So yeah, Hal seals up the cockpit after entering in some autopilot instructions, and I think yeah, the ship detaches and everybody watches as this chrome, silver, and yellow ship, very graceful looking, detaches from the ship and begins to move off. And it's still within your range about a minute later when it stretches and flickers and disappears.
And we're all promptly fined for throwing away Sector Ranger property.
It was actually hers. It was only impounded by you guys.
Good.
I think notably one of Hal's spacesuit arms is probably flopping around uselessly because he has actually not gotten a cybernetic prosthesis for his left arm just yet. I think Roddick, at this point, you've gotten your arm installed, but Hal's had a rough time with his treatment. He seemed to have had much worse experience with the virus than you did, even though he didn't display the symptoms like you did. It seemed to have been ravaging his body, and he takes a much longer period to recover, like a full month. And when that happens, Hal leaves. He's got his starfighter, the Star Rider, and I think like the quarantine is ended, and he gets ready to leave. I think he probably at least tells you, Roddick, because he figured like he shouldn't leave without telling anybody. And he says that he needs to figure out why exactly he's here anymore.
Did he get Rayla's lightsaber back? I want to make sure he gets it back.
Yeah. I think maybe he wasn't in the condition to actually go back into the engineering room for a very long time because of how severe things were. But maybe you were, and you retrieved it. It's like this, this silver handle with the blue blade.
Yeah, I'll probably pass that to him, and I'll tell them if he ever needs us. We still do have the communications array mounted on the ship. Give us a call, and we'll head out that way.
Thank you, Roddick.
Lightsaber.
Yeah, like he's holding it with his one good hand, and he's looking down at it. You know, it was actually his before he gave it to Rayla, and he tucks it back to his belt. He says, "I hope things go well for you." And yeah, he leaves the ship and disappears later that day. And you don't see him.
After he disappears out of earshot, I'll just mutter, "I've had enough of the damn Force," and I'll just start muttering my way towards the hangar.
So for the next several months, your crew is kind of dispersed until you're now sitting in Lorsch Laurent. What is? God damn it! I had to pick a crazy Lorsch Kron's office. And yeah, he gestures you inside. You notice he's a little bit more richly attired than normal, and his office is definitely nicer, like some sort of a staff officer. And he says, "Agent B, Concord, come in." He gestures you to sit down.
I'll step into the room.
So, have you already claimed accommodations aboard the vessel? I was informed that you arrived only recently.
Haven't had a chance. I just got back a few hours ago.
He nods. Well, I guess we'll get down to business then. Not much for the pleasantries. Right. I think he's been notably a little bit more tactful with you, Roddick, since Rayla died. He's still not like soft or anything, but he's not been quite as blunt as before.
It definitely seems like he's pretty straight to business right now, but at the same time he's not harboring any ill will or anything.
As you know, the Farseeker is going to be setting out in the next week. I'm sure you've heard all the reports on the news, the rumors, where exactly it will be heading. That is actually something you have been hearing like quite a lot of speculation on. A lot of news services are thinking that like the first jump that you guys are going to be making is like out to Imperial space. That the Sector Rangers are going to like go and engage in some sort of like Star Destroyer on Star Destroyer diplomacy with the Empire. Others think that that you're going to go start laying down like the framework of an alliance with the Corellian Confederation or maybe the Hapen consortium. Like there's all sorts of things. Like what will the Sector Rangers do with this newfound power? I think he says, I can definitely tell you where we are going, and then where you are going. They are two separate things. As you know, we're definitely spread a little thin at the moment. We've committed all our resources to moving here, and it's left us a little vulnerable. A lot of worlds that we should be protecting that we haven't been able to, not as much as we should. And a lot of people are trying to take advantage of that. The Farseeker. That's exactly what we're doing. The Farseeker will be engaging on a 2-year deployment. We are going to visit each and every system that we have a trade agreement or a treaty agreement with. Notably to you, that's like 122 star systems, like across the entire galaxy. All of those gold diamonds. Like that's a very big piece of news. And he says, but before we do that, our first stop is going to be Galantos. And we are going to show those people that it is not wise to mess with the Sector Rangers. They deliberately withheld information that put one of our crew in danger and led to the death of most of the crew of the Rising Star. We are going to jump into Galantos, and we are going to lay down the law. That will be our first stop on the tour. Unfortunately, one Star Destroyer is not quite as powerful as we would like it to be. The Empire, we don't even know how many they have, and you know they have several somethings more powerful than a simple Star Destroyer. Be that as it may, it puts us a far step over the typical scum that we've been dealing with for the last decade. But, like I said, one Star Destroyer is not quite enough. And it is in that light that the Central Command has determined that we will be forming a fleet around the Farseeker. We already have several vessels, such as the Silent Vigil, that you know of, but you also know that we are lacking considerably in the way of capital ships, or even anything close. It's something of a sad day when the Far Ranger is one of our larger, more capable vessels, as tried and trusted as it has proved. With that in mind, we need to take every opportunity we can to acquire more forces. Now, we're going to be deploying you, I think he pauses, probably someplace you've never heard of. Have either of you been to the Arcanus sector? For your information, the Arcanus sector, way down over here, is like the freaking back-ass end of the middle of nowhere. There's like no reason to go to the Arcanus sector. It's past Drunkenwell. The only notable planet like past the Arcanus sector is REYLA, which is the home to the Twi'leks. There's very few worlds notable to visit past that. Everything else out there is like lawless, ruled by pirates.
Sounds like a sector I might have heard of, sir, but I'm not too familiar with them.
Well, there's this measly little dust ball of a planet out there in the Tattoo system, Tatooine. Nothing you've ever heard of. It's honestly not that strategically important. No resources to speak of. He's reading it off of a data pad. Population under 200,000. Apparently, going back as far as the Old Republic, it's been settled time and time again by mining corporations who were too stupid to realize that the ore there is absolutely piss poor. It's absolutely worthless. But somehow people keep getting roped into making mining colonies there, and even when they keep getting abandoned, the people get left there. Very small population. Honestly, nothing there but sand and less than 1% water on the surface. Nothing to speak of at all. Just bandits and moisture farmers.
I'm gonna nod and say that. So what do they need help with? What's to just clear up the bandit problem?
Well, if it was simple bandits, they honestly wouldn't need our help. The people out there are pretty rough, and they've learned to take care of themselves. But in the last several months, going back 5 or 6, maybe a little longer than that, maybe a little shorter than that. They've reported a new problem. Some serious heavy hitters moved in. They've been trying to take over the planet. Well, not necessarily officially, but unofficially, raiding outposts much more severely than anything else in the past. Not necessarily military-grade hardware, but much heavier duty than most civilians have. Very brutal. Series of towns have been burned off the map, and you don't want to know what they're doing to the people there. It is unfortunately not a planet that has a government, and it's not a planet that we have an agreement with. What government there is simply local to each settlement, if they have a government at all. Now, the reason we're interested is several of the settlements have banded together to contact us and ask us for our aid. As I said before, we're very stretched thin. We can't commit too many resources to this. But they're pretty desperate, and they're offering something that, well, we're not entirely sure is entirely valid. If it pans out, could be a very big boon for us.
I'll nod and say, what is it you're offering then? What is it they're offering? What's making this mission notable to folks like you?
Well, Tatooine is known for maybe only a couple things aside from the fact that it's a desolate planet. It's also the location of quite a few wrecks. Most of these things have been worn away by the desert, but quite a few of them are claiming, through the leader who contacted us, to know the location of a dreadnought-class starship. Very old class of starship. Not necessarily quite up to match as the Farseeker, but could pan out. We're not exactly sure where it's located, or even if it's located on the planet or somewhere in the system. But they've promised if we help them out, they will relinquish all salvage rights to this vessel and give us its location.
Well, I think we should help them out regardless, but I'm happy to see that at least they've given you a reason for Sector Rangers to help them. I'm just gonna kind of think about it for a second. So when do we leave?
Well, it's going to take a few days for the rest of your crew to get here, and the modifications to the Far Ranger will take another couple days. You've obviously noticed some sections of the ship have been sealed off, but you'll leave within the week, right about the time we leave, to be honest. Here's your crew manifest. Now, you don't... I realize that this has been an issue in the past, he says, looking at the two of you. Roddick, you once again are senior ranger, but you'll see on here that we are assigning several new ones. None of them have seniority, but this is going to be a joint command. Yeah, he passes you this this data pad, and you can see that you're being assigned... Let me see how many crew. Eight new crew members, as well as 3 new droids. You're also getting assigned another starship.
Wow.
They've also apparently made some significant overhaul changes to the interior of the Far Ranger.
I'm gonna look that over and say joint command. So who am I supposed to be sharing command with here?
Well, it's part of the deal we made with them when they left their previous employment. When you made off with the Far Ranger or the Farseeker, You didn't make off with just this thing. You made off with quite a bunch of people. I believe you know them as Epsilon Squad. We've been meaning to assign you some additional troops for some time to deal with boarding operations, and they came as a package deal. But part of the deal was for, I guess the word is defecting. They go through a month of sector ranger training, and they're all considered official sector rangers now. None of this cadet business. I believe you might know one of them is Gav Kalorn. Another
I'm looking
one
over.
known as Gore.
I'm going to say that some of them seemed like good people. I don't think they were in on things, but have they all gone through their evaluations? The last thing we need is a sector or Imperial spy in the mission with everything going on.
They were all offered the opportunity to return to the Empire, and I have to say, Roddick, not a single one of them took up the offer. There were almost 20 soldiers. No, there weren't 20. It was like over a dozen, I think.
I don't exactly think they would have had a welcome home, sir, but I think this
They've
might
they've
work out.
passed all of the tests that we've been able to give them, Roddick. It's not like we gave them a pass.
I'm going to nod and say that. Good.
Any of this new crew pilot a starship?
They do have a vehicle expert. One of the new crew, private sector. He's being hired on to help bolster your numbers. We needed someone to fly the interdiction craft that we're sending with you. It's a boarding craft that the assault crew can use. It's got an attachment that will let you cut right through another ship's hull if it comes to that. It's an interesting character, Fiorin, name of Locke. He's got some experience piloting this kind of craft. He offered his services to us. He's not a ranger. He's a special consultant like yourself, Agent B. But he does have some experience in piloting. And one of the Epsilon soldiers is listed as apparently a vehicle specialist as well, from everything from tanks to starfighters. And I think as that happens, I'm going to move us over to the Far Ranger sheet. You will notice it has been expanded horizontally, so if you need to go over, just right-click and drag. You will see quite a few new faces to the sheet. You've also been assigned an an AD series armorer droid. Going over the records from your last mission, there were some, how we say, discrepancies in your evidence log procedures, Concord. And
some of the evidence was unfortunately used to kill zombies, sir.
I think there's just like a snort. He says, "Be that as it may, I've taken the liberty of assigning M9D6 to your crew. Aside from taking personal authority over the evidence locker, I will believe you'll be pleased to note that he is an extreme authority on personal weapons and gear, and he should be able to keep your weapons and armor in tip-top shape. He's also known to modify gear from time to time."
Excellent. I've been needing a man for that since Signal has moved up in the world.
Yes, we'll be needing him. The one known as Padak has been officially granted assignment to your crew. I think he just shakes his head with that, and he doesn't even bother commenting on it. And you can have the personnel roster for the Epsilon soldiers yourself.
I nod and I'll take a look at it and say that I think at least Agent Gore is a good man. He was very useful on the ship.
One last thing. We have taken the liberty of removing that stasis pod from your ship. And Roddick, you need to be aware of how expensive this stuff is, especially in our current circumstances. But we've replaced it with a full-on Bacta tank. You'll have one load of this stuff. Make sure you use it carefully.
We will. That could certainly save.
We'll be
some
paying
lives.
by the liter.
Could certainly save some lives. We appreciate the consideration. It's good to see that the Rangers are taking care of us this time around.
You say this time around, and he just, I think, like, his formerly friendly, like, maybe vaguely friendly attitude, like, just shifts to a completely cold attitude. And he says, Roddick, let there be no misunderstanding. I've gotten a lot of notes about you. There may have been some notes in Miss Farseeker's log that maybe you might not have wished to get out. Don't give me any crap.
Relic will just kind of cross his arms and say, I'm not giving you any crap, sir. Anxious to get on with the mission.
Alright, well, the rest of your crew should be filing in over the next couple of days or so. And in fact, I think he's getting a beeping on his link. The Sand Panther has just requested docking clearance as we speak. I believe your new boarding pilot will be introduced to you shortly.
Yeah, turn into the boarding pilot. Sounds like we're going to be doing a lot of pullovers.
Well, you've tried it in the past and had limited luck. I will remind you that you let me see how your log phrased it. Backed into a starship and it collapsed in on itself and then dispersed around the outer rim of the star system with all hands lost aboard. Was that accurate?
I'll say that it may have been accurate, but I don't believe that was the intention when that happened.
No, but maybe you might need a more competent method of boarding ships.
I think I'm going to nod and say that I'm not against it, sir. I just was wondering if that was something I needed to know.
Also need to inform you that you do have your choice of vehicle assignments for your vehicle bay. Make sure you give the armory and vehicle quartermaster aboard the Farseeker at least a day's notice before making any significant changes. He hands you a list complete with a couple assault tanks, and I think you drool over some Imperial grade walkers.
Will you be returning to this our home base at any point during the operation, or are we going to be 2 years before we return? This might influence our vehicle decisions.
When it comes time to return to the Far Ranger, or the Farseeker, you will report to our current location. The Farseeker will be acting as a mobile command base wherever we are in the current system.
I think Radical nods, so that sounds very efficient. Is AJB here?
Yep.
Yep.
Is she saying anything, or is she just sitting there listening?
I'm just listening to you guys talk.
So, does anybody have any questions, or do you head out to meet the new team?
Probably gonna head out to meet the new team. I'm actually kind of curious what kind of folks they sent with us.
All right. B.
Yes, I follow.
Okay. All right. So, I think you get down to the primary docking bay, and the Far Ranger is inside. It's been, I think it's probably been repainted, or I guess probably not repainted. It's probably been sandblasted, and some panels have been replaced. There's been some interior bulkhead work. Notably, they've definitely worked on adding like a dedicated evidence locker, and I think just pulling into the bay is this craft, which you have in fact seen before. You recognize it as the Phoenix Hawk class light pinnace that you guys disabled and captured during your last mission. Although it seems to have some significant modifications. And
Look,
it
it looks like they finally got that fixed up then.
sets down
I'm
in the
actually
bay
surprised
near
we got it intact.
the Far Ranger.
I think I'll head over to see who comes out.
So, Locke, why don't you describe yourself? I think like a small... Yeah, I think a small droid trundles down after him. And the closer you get, like, you can hear Roddick and Bunko that this droid is just like talking up a storm behind Locke. See, Captain Locke, I told you, old starships like this never seem to give up the ghost. The deck plating here, and he taps his foot, like, most solid. I was once on an interdictor class cruiser myself, and he literally goes on and on and on and does not stop talking. And I think Locke, you've been dealing with this for like the last 3 hours.
Roddick will probably come up on this scene and say, "Does he always talk like that?"
Oh, a Niotrin. I haven't seen one of your kind in approximately 17.55 days.
I think I'm just gonna look at him and this kind of crooked eyebrow that he's seen my kind in it recently. I've heard you were supposedly commanding a second ship and a task force of sorts. Just me that was instrumental in taking it, Captain. I'm just gonna sound a bit down, and then I'll take a look around and say that when we be ready to go, we're just assembling the rest of our team now.
Yeah, I
Is
think
this ship capable of docking to our ship, or is it not? Is it
it
too
can
big?
dock, but it cannot travel through hyperspace with you. It has to make a parallel jump.
Good to know.
Most notably, it can carry a small number of other people, most of a squad. If the whole boarding squad has to go with them, they're probably going to be very uncomfortable. But he can carry a good number of boarders. I think you also notice that it has some significant ion cannonry on the ship. So I think Padak is as usual cleaning the ramp, and he's cleaning out the cargo hold as you guys approach. Take it you guys are probably giving Locke the tour of the Far Ranger while you're here for the next day. I think you might have quarters aboard the Far Ranger. I'm not sure. I put them in here, but that was if you needed them. How would you feel about that? Would you just would you be living aboard the Sand Panther the entire time, or would you keep quarters aboard the Far Ranger? I realize there might be some logistical issues if you were to keep some quarters aboard the Far Ranger. Yes. I was figuring it might be set aside if you guys were on planet somewhere for a very long time and you wanted to sleep somewhere else. I imagine there's probably a very small room with a bunk on your ship that's acceptable.
Makes sense.
Turn to Roddick. Have we decided what we want in the cargo bay?
That's a good question. The Arrow is good for general civilian business and traffic. I hate to give that up if we're going to be gone for an extended period of time and we're not planning on a direct assault, but it's a hard argument.
This guy is one of the vehicle experts. Maybe he has expertise in some of those vehicles.
You get his input, but I do want something that's capable of working in civilian environments. Always.
Notably, the place you are heading is not a civilian environment.
True. But we won't be able to get back for a while. Is the only downside.
What do you mean back for a while?
I mean, we won't be able to get back to the Star Destroyer for a very long time to pick up a new vehicle if we take something different.
What's keeping you? All you have to do is find out where they are and jump there.
Totally, we have
Yeah,
hyperspace
You
transmitter.
asked that question like 20 minutes ago, and he said just it will be acting as the mobile base, and whenever people need to go there, they will just jump to the system it's currently in.
I just thought it would be, since we're going to the ass into nowhere, it'd be like a month to jump back or something. So that's what I was thinking it'd be.
Yeah, but it'll still be like one jump. It
Okay.
might be like a couple weeks,
Yeah,
but
I'll say
it still might be that long to get to Denon normally.
I will say, why don't we speak to the vehicle expert and see what they would recommend for the situation at hand then?
Okay. Also aboard your ship, freshly assigned is M9D6. He has taken up residence in the workshop, where he can work and also keep track of the evidence locker. He has been assigned there to make sure that things are not misplaced again, and he also basically just lives in the workshop because he is a full tech specialist and he is able to modify people's equipment. Something that Roddick you would know, given you're a fairly in-depth law enforcement officer. The Ad Series Armorer Droid has been at times repurposed as a standard model police droid, and they can, in some circumstances, function as a law enforcement model. Some of them have protocols that allow them to make arrests, and they are not necessarily physically inept.
Ooh, that's very interesting to know.
So he introduces himself, and he says, "Welcome aboard the Far Ranger. I am M9D6. Believe you are the commander of this vessel, or one of its assigned crew."
I'll nod and say that I'm the current commander of the Fire Ranger, yes?
It is my pleasure to be aboard. I will be keeping track of your evidence storage and also maintaining your equipment.
Hopefully you are okay with playing with how things operate on this ship. Sometimes the evidence came in very useful last time around. Unfortunately,
So I have been
mostly
informed
lost.
by the other droids aboard this vessel.
And say that hopefully we get along fine, though. I think that there may be a lot of heavy ordnance requests that'll be put in.
Another big change, I think, as you're going through the ship, the armory has been doubled in space. Unfortunately for you, Roddick, your bathroom has been removed. The refresher that was right next to your room has been knocked out, and instead the armory has been expanded to be more than twice its previous size. And you can see like stacks of new, I think like new weapons. A door directly from Roddick's room into the armory.
Most definitely be happy to see the armory's expanded. I will walk the extra distance for the bathroom for that.
I think there are some additional pieces of equipment I don't have on hand just now that have definitely been added to the armory. It looks like they've stocked it pretty well.
That's good to hear. We had a very lightly stocked armory before.
And you've also been informed that basically the port side of the ship has been assigned to the new folks coming on from Epsilon. All of their rooms are assigned over there. Although you will maybe be pleased to note that Rayla's room is like nobody's gone through it. It's just been sealed since her death. Since there's been no call for reassignment.
That's gonna probably make Roddick a bit bummed when he passes by it, and probably take some looks in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Also, Hal's room is still here. I don't think it ever got reassigned. It's probably not locked. He actually might have like maybe a couple possessions still in here that maybe he forgot to bring or something, or maybe he just didn't care to bring.
I might.
Jirak is not actually a part of your crew. No, you're only getting
Calorn
6
is
members of the defectors. Jirak actually did join the Rangers, and I think he's probably one of their new like tactical officers. Funnily enough, after rolling the 20 for your diplomacy check on how you could avoid war with the Empire rolled a 1 on convincing Epsilon squad to come back, and so none of them left.
Wow.
And they all like ended up literally believing what Hal told them, that the Imperial Intelligence branch betrayed them all, and like now they're like definitely. I think almost all of them have joined the Rangers. A couple of them have just like quit everything altogether and gone private. Another thing to note is that the not the interview room. It was previously the customs room. Has been reformed to be the new briefing room.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Like that?
it's just aft of the armory. It's a very big room. It's got quite a lot of stations in here. It's got some hollow projectors, the works. There's like a briefing podium and everything.
Nice.
So what do you
That's
guys?
a bathroom, right?
Where?
That's like
yes.
a cell, right? That's the bathroom.
Yeah, it's the bathroom. It's probably to allow the prisoner in the interview room to go use the toilet, or the prospective prisoner. I always see "interview" in air quotes when I'm looking at the interview
Replace
room.
with interrogation room. No, sorry.
Yep. So, the weapons haven't really been overhauled on the ship or anything like that. The ship has seen a tune-up, especially the engine, that sort of thing, the communications gear. Everything's working pretty functionally. Signals duties have been turned over to N52. Do you guys do anything for the next day while you're waiting for the rest of your crew to show up? Seems like they're out of system right now, and they're going to be showing up tomorrow as it's scheduled.
Roddick's probably gonna just comment, maybe hate being on this ship and go back to the Fire Ranger for a little bit. And
You're on the Fire Ranger.
I mean, like, I'm not gonna spend much time on the Vector. I'm gonna definitely stay on the Star Ranger.
Okay.
I can help it.
Okay, so you're definitely heading back to your room. This is like the first time you've actually been back to your quarters in a long time. You've been on the other planet for months.
Do you actually have something I want to do? I'm just trying to check what I need to do it. Hold on 1 second.
How about Agent B? Anything you're doing? Pranks, dropping cherry bombs in Roddick's toilet, or?
Being that Roddick doesn't have a toilet anymore. I'm gonna research about Tatooine and see if I have any contacts that know anything about it.
That's definitely a smart thing to do.
I found
And
it.
yeah,
I know
since
exactly what I'm gonna do. I want to kill a few hours trying to make black powder pistol rounds in my room.
oh
Kill
god,
some time.
this is not a good check to roll a 1 on. By the way,
Yeah.
lose a couple fingers.
Yeah, I'm definitely wearing my armored glove, but yeah, I'm gonna be out there. We're gonna relax for a few hours by making custom pistol rounds.
Okay.
I think it needs a DC 15 mechanics check. It says 1 hour time to make pistol.
Are you doing this in the workshop?
Yeah, I'll probably head over to the workshop and try to zen out.
That's like where the
you have a
best
new armory
facilities
droid that
are.
might be able to help you.
I think it's not helping maybe so much as like watching Roddick. It's never seen this process done before. It's very interested. It's like I have never seen the manufacture of these sorts of primitive chemical rounds.
Primitive but effective. I'll comment as I just try to play off the comments and kind of get into my zen of making ammunition.
All right, give me a roll, and then we'll get to Bunko.
Oh god, this would not be one to botch.
Okay,
Oh,
all right.
Thank God.
Yeah, you get you get 5 shots.
Nice.
Primitive ammunition. I think M96 comments. You may be able to wound a womp rat with one of these things. I fail to see how it may be useful against a sentient, however, much less one of my own stature.
I'm gonna just turn and say, if I'm ever using this gun to save us, things have gone very wrong.
Is this not the purpose of a firearm?
Not in this case. In this case, it's rest and relaxation, and I'm just gonna load one of the rounds into the pistol and probably take it down to the firing range.
I think you say that, and he's at his own workbench, and he's like literally assembling a blaster rifle at like 10 times speed, and he pauses and he looks down at what he's doing, and he's like, I believe I understand. And like he's assembling his own rifle. Yeah. So B, you're wanting to look for information on Tatooine.
Yep.
Yeah, that's something you can easily do, given that you're not only on the Far Ranger with your own hyperwave transceiver link, but you're also aboard the Farseeker, which has like a HoloNet link and a hyperwave transceiver. Like you're plugged in. So give me a gather information check, and I'll give you like a +2 circumstance bonus on it. Wow, that's very good. Would you like to? Oh, you can't re-roll. So you can learn quite a bit about Tatooine. Like, I guess odds against odds, one of your contacts knows that has actually been to this worthless planet. There's not a whole lot of information about it in the HoloNet data system, data storage, but I can give you some definite information. And then if there's anything else you would like to know, you can tell me. It lies in the Outer Rim. It's in the Arcanus sector. It's a part of the Tattoo system. It is part of a binary star system, Tattoo 1 and Tattoo 2. It has 3 moons: Gomrasin, Guermesa, and Chanini. It's near several trade routes, but it is not a very popular planet. It's approximately 43,000 light years from the galactic core. Local day is 23 standard hours. The local year is 340 days. It's a terrestrial planet. Diameter of 6,500 miles. Pretty small. That's actually very small. That's like Earth's moon. It's breathable atmosphere, but it's very arid. It's got standard gravity. primary terrain is listed as desert, some oases, mesas, buttes, canyons, and it is thought. I think you like maybe you find some with that sort of check. You find some like ancient or not ancient, but old research papers like referenced on the HoloNet, saying that like it's thought that maybe oceans and rainforests used to dot Tatooine's landscape, and that there was some sort of huge catastrophe far, far, far in the past, like more than 5,000 years ago, and it went from being a lush jungle planet to being like the worthless desert it is now. It has less than 1% surface water. Somewhere at last count, less than 200,000 citizens, but like the last census was during the Imperial occupation, like a century ago, more than a century ago, like probably like 105 years, 110 years. No official capital, no official government. Not a whole lot of flora. There are some native creatures that are of maybe note. There's the dewback, the bantha, the ronto, womp rats, which have kind of spread to other planets, are supposedly native here. There's quite a lot of lizard creatures. There's also something called a crate dragon, which is reportedly one of the largest land animals in the galaxy. Probably doesn't sound too friendly. There are some native species, reportedly. Nobody's really quite sure if they're native or not. One of them being the Tuscans. Nobody really knows quite how they differ from humans or not. They're apparently nomadic people who live out in the desert. They've kind of they're also alternatively known as the Sand People. The Kumunga were once rumored to live on this planet. This is another research article, but definitely not anymore. This is like many millennia ago. Like this is some crazy theorist who's talking. Jawas are also rumored to come from this planet, but like I think you also with this sort of role get like some information that like no, Jawas were originally spacefaring people and they came from the stars. They only crash landed on Tatooine. But regardless, the largest amount of Jawas in the galaxy reside on Tatooine. There's quite a few people or species of peoples living here. Like pretty much any species that can survive on such an arid world can. At one point, the planet was ruled by the Empire, was taken by the New Republic at some point, and then eventually abandoned when the Galactic Federation of Alliances went kaput. Before then, it's been alternatively ruled by the Hutts to some extent. The vast majority of population are humans, somewhere in the order of 70%. The former capital of the planet is known as Bestine. That was at least the imperial capital. It's still reportedly a city there, but of how much important is hard to say. And I think like on the topic of major exports, it's just like illegal munitions and narcotics, and slaves. There's nothing legal that's exported from Tatooine.
Are slaves legal on Tatooine?
No. Like there again, there's no government on Tatooine, so like these bandits who have been living on Tatooine for millennium just like raid outposts and settlements and take people as slaves. At one point, slavery was legal on Tatooine back when Tatooine had some governments. Now it's just like settlements live in like self-determine Not even to the point of city states. It's just like this city or this town is in it for itself, and if it can fend off raiders, that's what they do. So if they can take slaves, that's a thing, and they sell them off world.
You said the Hutts, are they still semi in power or not?
No. They were at one point, and then they apparently there was a somewhat reputable Hutt involved on this planet, and after he was killed, the Hutts saw no profit on this planet. Like, there's just nothing that comes from this planet that's of any importance at all, and they just completely abandoned it. It's been abandoned by pretty much everybody. Is there anything else that you would like to know? That's kind of like the major things I can go over.
Well, you said about the Hutts, but just any kind of like crime organizations, prominent ones, stuff like that.
You rolled pretty high, so that's definitely something I could do. Now, your contact says that there's been no criminal syndicate or anything that has ruled over Tatooine in the recent past or anything like that. There are typically gangs that, like, I guess the Tuskens used to be known as like the Tusken Raiders. They used to be very violent and in like rape and pillage. That all eventually changed. It wasn't necessarily because of diplomacy, but like as the lot of the people of Tatooine started to get worse after they got abandoned by the collapse of the New Republic and everything. The Sand People actually ended up coming out better, and they were no longer quite as hunted down or oppressed. And so they're more accepted today as like roving nomadic traders. Occasionally, they do some business with the settlements. What has replaced their sort of menace in society are the occasional settlements of raiders. Like there might be a raider stronghold here or there. Gangs from the cities are definitely very, very vicious. Some of them kind of rule over quadrants of the cities. I think there are probably a few settlements that are ruled over by individual kind of warlords, but they're not very powerful. And in terms of like criminal enterprises, there's a few very minor ones that are exporting munitions and like slaves, but nothing huge. Not until really recently. I think your contact tells you. Like you get a lot of this information just from basic searches, but your contact is like giving you the background on criminal enterprises here, and says that let me see. It says that there's like I think the Karaz were once fairly prominent here. Like they were a local gang striving to make a name for themselves, and they had some slave trade with the Hutts. Like they were exporting slaves out of the star system to the Hutts. Like it's not like the Hutts had really a presence here. They were just trying to make a name for themselves, trying to make some money. They also operated in illegal weapons and stuff. And there's some that are so small that it's not even bother noting their names. But in the last year sometime, the Karaz got wiped out. And it's reportedly like some sort of gang-on-gang or criminal syndicate rivalry. And your contact cannot tell you, even with that really good roll, what this organization is that has supplanted them. It's come in the last year. It's rumored that they are off-world. and that they've recently made camp on Tatooine, and they've settled in to try to take advantage of the lawless situation that they've been subjugating the criminal enterprises here that are weak, and destroying the ones that won't submit to them, and that they've been like turning things into like an actual organized criminal sort of enterprise.
Alright.
So you're looking all that up, and Roddick's making weapons rounds. Locke, what do you do with your free time? Are you like exploring the Farseeker? Yeah, you picked it up down on Denon. I think it was on the Farseeker at one point, and then it was brought down to Denon for some overhauls, and that was where you like I think you probably went to go sign up, and that was where they eventually gave it to you. Yeah, there's a lot of activity here, but it's mostly centered in the forward lower sections. Near the docking bays and stuff. The further aft you get, like the less crowded it is. That changes a little bit towards the bridge sections. But it's a very empty ship in some areas. There is like a full like shopping mall on the ship. There's actually a couple, but only one of them is currently inhabited, catering to the current place where the Rangers are staying, and like they've literally had people move in for restaurants and other things. So aside from the sector Rangers, there are actually just like civilians on board. You can essentially treat it like a modern military base, to be honest. uh, oh yeah. I think there's one called Turbo Laser 55 is probably is probably the one that you find. Oh, it's called Turbo Laser 55. Who knows? Who knows if it is beneath the actual Turbo Laser or not? Yeah. So yeah, I think there's probably like 15 or 20 people in here. It's a pretty active environment. Um, so yeah, the bartender is a Nautilin. Let me get a picture of that for everybody. Here you go. Uh, they're an aquatic species with many head tendrils. Um, not a terrible amount of them out in the galaxy, and I think he turns to you as he's polishing a glass, and he says, "You new on the destroyer?" Oh, that's that Guardian class. I heard some stories about that one. Well, take a seat. What'd you like to drink? Yeah, he nods and he says, "A man with good tastes." And he gets the bottle down and he pours it. He'll say, 50 creds. You picked a very nice bottle indeed. This was actually aboard when we found it. Had to go through the whole quarantine procedure, but that being said, it's more than a century old. So I think like this bottle is so old that the labeling has worn off, and you can't even tell what it is. But it is very strong stuff when you down it. Says, what do? You you a ranger, or you just sign on for? He nods. Quite a few. Oh, that sounds like an interesting prospect. Well, I imagine you're going to have an interesting time. Sounds like we're going to be heading out next week, or maybe later this week. I think that's actually what they were saying. I don't know. I've been traveling most of my life. That's what they're rumoring. So yeah, he probably entertains your conversation for some time, and then wishes you a safe trip. You know, says stay safe out there defending the galaxy. All right. So the next day, Roddick, I think you're in your quarters, and there's like a chime on your wall. Boop 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 boop.
I will go answer it.
So that would, I think you get like a sudden burst of binary from S19 and 52, which you can make out that says Officer Concord. Our guests seem to have arrived. They are unloading in the cargo bay. Like, I think, like, maybe you're like this early. Like, this is early even for Roddick, and you look over, and it's probably like 4:45.
The morning? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with that, I'll probably start gearing up to head off to meet them.
Okay. Do you notify B that they're here, or do you let B get her beauty rest?
Oh, any excuse to wake B up in the middle of the night probably gonna get Roddick totally on that. So yeah, he's totally gonna give her a call and tell her that she should immediately get dressed and meet us in the bay.
Awesome.
What for?
Is this a video call or not?
That's up to them. Did you call B via video, Roddick, or did you just use the intercom?
No, I'll probably just use the intercom with the most squealing feedback possible and telling her that the new arrivals have shown up.
Come back, Rocco.
All right, so Roddick, you head down to the bay.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely head down to the bay and get ready to assess the new hires.
So yeah, there's actually a couple like hover loading lifts that have been brought up, and currently you see several armored figures offloading some crates into the bay. Looks like 5 or 6 of them. I think one of them comes around the corner, and you definitely do count 6. Wearing various sets of Imperial Remnant armor, and I think you recognize the form of Corporal Calorn. as he comes around with his helmet's probably laying on one of the containers. Looks like he's helping a Deveronian female with a box of looks like a box of detonators or something, and they set it down, and he sees you, and he says, Officer Concord, it's good to see you again.
Likewise, I was just about to say the same. I'm without thinking, start to extend my right hand to shake his hand, then think better of it and extend my left hand instead.
Yeah, I think he kind of awkwardly adjusts to extend his left hand as well, and he nods and he shakes your hand, and he turns to everybody. Notably, I think most of these people were not people you really interacted with much on the Star Destroyer side from the Corporal himself. I think you probably saw a couple of them in the med center, but a couple of them were wounded, a couple of them were out on patrol, that sort of thing. And he says, "Well, let me introduce the team. I'm glad you could take us on board. Honestly, I didn't know if we could find a home for everybody, if you know what I mean. So this is Tarsi."
Like said, we're gonna need good people under our command soon. And
yeah. So he gestures next to him to the Deveronian woman. She's got like light pink skin, with like these black kind of stub-like horns on her forehead. And she gives you a nod, and he says, "This is our demo expert. She's been with us a long time, and she's definitely very solid." He gestures across to a Keldor, who's wearing the typical Keldor face mask because they have to breathe their own atmospheric mix, and he says, "That's Dradar Kalu. He's kind of our vehicle specialist. If there's something that needs piloting, anything from a speeder bike to a grav tank to maybe a Star Destroyer." I think he chuckles a little bit. Dradar can muck through it at least enough to get us where we need to go. I think Dradar nods to you, says, "How's it going?" and just gives you the typical nod. Over there's Ciro. He gestures towards a Rhodian male who seems to be unloading one of the pallets, and the guy stops long enough to give you a polite nod and like raises a hand to you. Ciro's kind of our resident technical expert. I wouldn't say he's up to Signal's capacity, but he gets the job done when we need to open a door or do something else. He's also very fond of building his own equipment. If there's any time the Signal needs to be hacked or anything like that, he's typically our man. Which one are you? Well, Gore hasn't arrived yet. Gore is going to make his own entry. He gestures to a Kalish male. He says, "This is Urktaba. He's what you may call a close quarters specialist. Urktaba has a couple like horns extending down from his chin, and he gives you like a very like formal kind of polite tilt of the head. He's got a little bit of medical training, but I wouldn't call him a medic. Mostly we just send him in with Gore when things need to get trashed. And then there's Rita, and he points to a Rhodian female who's unloading some weapons from the cargo pallet. She's our sharpshooter. And I think the Rhodian gives you kind of like a look over, and she like quirks a hip, and she says, "You look like a tough one." She says this in kind of like the bubbling Rhodian dialect.
Is most of your crew being assigned to the new ship, the Sandpiper, or is it being assigned to the Fire Ranger?
We definitely can't live over there on the Sand Panther. Very limited accommodations. We'll be, from my understanding, we'll be staying aboard the Fire Ranger until we're needed to transfer over. Yes. The sector chief, Kron, he's instructed us that we're to assist you in tactical and assault matters, but mainly we're to be on standby in case you need to board a vessel, take a fixed position with the Sand Panther. But if you need us, we're here. We'd like to offer our services. We don't really have any other reputable skills. I think he looks to the rest of the crew, and we just want to contribute. I think as he says that, there's like a pounding of very large feet on the deck plating as former Private Gore pounds up the ramp and into the cargo hold, carrying his arsenal and everything, maybe with a big grin on his face. Gore, you have entered the scene.
I walk my way up with my E-Web and my concussive missile launcher. Huh! I'm back. It's good. Roddick is here, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
It's good to see you have recovered from your injuries, Roddick.
I think Roddick will turn and will extend his robot arm to shake Gore's hand, and I'll say, it's good to have you on board.
Gore shakes the robot arm with his equally big, meaty arm.
Yeah, I think Gore, you notice that this is like, if you lost an arm, this is probably what actually you would normally be outfitted with. I think you think it's pretty humorous.
So,
And of course you know Gore.
is this our new crewmate? Looking over at Locke.
Turn to Locke and say that the
Gore
Yeah, I
reaches
think-
out with one big meaty arm. I am your heavy weapons expert.
Oh, please tell me we get the beginning of Predator. Locke and Gore doing the Schwarzenegger fist pump. Give me a strength check, both of you.
Oh, here we go.
It could be.
I get a +5 on whatever this is.
You could beat him, Locke. You could impress
beat him.
Private.
You're gonna get 12.
Former Private Gore. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Locke,
you beat him.
I think.
Damn.
Yeah. So Locke, this is a very wiry but tall. I think he's almost as tall as you, Gore. Not quite, but he's very tall. He's taller than everybody else here, and he's real wiry, but he's got some strength. You can just see their muscles bulging.
Gore rolls a 3. It's been the story of Gore's strength checks ever since I got him. But good to meet you.
I think Callorn says, Gore, this is the one that's going to be delivering you to the battles. He nods.
Oh.
He says,
Hope you have a big cargo bay on that thing. Very well. So he picks up this gun that's probably bigger than you are.
maybe you should open the bay door with Gore to suit, then you'll have 3 guns.
You could feasibly do it though. He has an anti-starcraft weapon. You could pop an airlock and he could feasibly be useful in
Concussive
starship
missile launcher
combat.
fired.
Oh god, that'll happen. Unless you just fired out of the boarding tube. Oh, God.
Lock, feed me some targeting data. Target data acquired.
So I think you probably all noticed like a little droid floating about the cargo hold and up in one of the corners.
Oh, what is that?
Yeah, it's been floating around like all day, just like taking images, studying everyone. I don't think anybody knows why it's here.
Who is this little one? Or points at the droid that's floating around.
You point at it and like it flitters out of the direction of where you pointed. And, like you go to point at it again and again flitters just out of the direction of where you were pointing it.
How big is this thing?
Probably
Like baseball sized, or?
I'd say somewhere like a little bit smaller than a soccer ball.
Somebody's new toy, I guess. Very well.
No way.
Kalorn, do you know where our bunks are to be?
Yeah, I think he nods and he says, "Yeah, I think Ciro, you're about done here, right?" And the Rhodian nods and he's like, "Why don't you show Gore up to his room, and we'll start getting settled in if that's all right with you."
Gore
Roddick.
gathers up their bags, and it's like, I can carry these.
If it's all right with you, Roddick, we still have some stuff to unload. I think we're probably going to be sticking most of it in the armory. But,
Can I give a call to the chief and see if I can get vacuum survival pouches authorized for all of our new members of the crew? Other
It's
than
always
Gore,
the
because
survival
unfortunately, you
pouches.
can only support medium-sized characters.
Yeah, I think the chief might not be the person to call. You might want to call, requisitions.
Yeah, I'll call requisitions. I just want to get.
I mean, you could call the chief, but he might not be happy.
Yeah, I'll probably try requisitions first. I want to get survival gear or not survival gear, but survival vacuum pouches for all
Give
of
me
our medium-sized newcomers.
Give me a bureaucracy roll, please. Actually, yeah, bureaucracy roll. Give me a 1d4. Okay. I think there's like a really bored sounding individual on the other line, and she's just like, vacuum pouches, grade C, how many do you need?
How many new crew members do we have that are medium size or less?
All of the Epsilon squad people are medium size except for Gore.
I see. Yeah, I'll just cite the number of Epsilon people. I think it's 5.
You can see him right here, Roddick.
Let me see. Oh, I didn't zoom out enough here. Okay, I got them all on view now. So I've got my friggin' tab up and it's like covering half the screen. Yeah, I'll order 1 vacuum pouch for each new member of the Imperials. I believe be 6 then.
All right. So yeah, she gives you like a huge run around in terms of like submit forms A through C, and then form H3, and they will be delivered to your bay within 24 hours.
Michael appreciate it, even though it's at least she sounds like she's bored. She's not purposely incompetent like the last tech I've had to deal with before. Briefly,
Yeah,
wonder
it's a good
about
thing you
him as
didn't.
I hang up.
It's a good thing you didn't roll a 1. I'll just say
I'll
that.
probably let the new crew know that those are coming, but I'll say, Private Gore, unfortunately, the technology doesn't work on someone of your size. You'll have to come up with another option in case of a emergency evacuation.
I think Kalorn just like snorts and says, "I think Gore needs a whole escape pod."
Armor sealed and up to snuff, Private?
I believe my armor seals are intact. It is no longer private.
of nod and say, "What's your new rank? Just full on."
Ranger Gore, of course.
Good to hear you, Ranger Gore.
Hey, what about letter? I have a letter.
So I think like the rest of the morning is spent with Epsilon getting their junk moved in. Like they've got like a lot of ordnance, a lot of it for boarding, and I think like they move a lot of it over to the Sand Panther as well. And at some point, B probably deigns to grace the rest of the crew with her presence and introduce herself.
I am B. Who are you? No. Did your mom name you that? Oh, alright. Grandpa? Yes, but you are blue enough. Paddock made my pancakes yet.
Is Poddock been trained to make you pancakes in the morning?
That's one of his duties.
Yeah, he's. I think right about that time, a small a small creature with huge feet emerges onto the deck, surprising everybody. He's got a plate full of I think it's probably Dantunian flapjacks, and he's just like, "Your breakfast is ready, Agent B."
Oh, good.
Yeah, like he goes and sits you down in the mess hall. Is everything to your liking, Agent B?
Yes. Just how I like it.
Yeah, like he bows. I think he's got like a he's got like an apron on. I am Padak. Good to meet you. He like extends a nervous hand. Yeah, like you like terrify him, and like you basically like crunch his hand a little bit, but he's like he nods. And he's like, "Hi."
Yes, indeed.
Yes, I, 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 and he's just like looking up at Gore. Please don't eat me.
There is
Agent
not
B,
to be afraid of.
I think there is a Rancor aboard the starship.
Rancors are bigger and had more teeth.
He just pales. I think I left something burning, and he just like scampers off back into the galley. His big feet plodding.
He's the cook and the space janitor.
To be honest, I'd rather fight the Rancor. Rancor can't use E-web cannons.
We could teach that. Maybe Gore could teach Paddock how to use the E-web.
Did you just hear like a pan get dropped in the galley?
Perhaps. Though we probably start with something smaller than an E-web. I have heard tale that there is a weapon bigger than an E-web that I am in search of someday.
What is this?
I think one of the stormtroopers, probably Ciro, is just like, "Oh, here we go again."
The heavy blaster cannon.
Shake my head and say, "Are you sure you just haven't considered thermonuclear rounds for your current weaponry? I'm sure that would be quite
Oh,
pumping.
please don't get him started.
I've given long thoughts on how to equip Mandalorian explosives to missile launchers such as yourself, but never really fit me.
Yet this guy's as fired up.
Roddick just looks about for a second and says, "It didn't rupture the hull on this ship." Roddick gonna say, "Well, in my defense, I wasn't quite in my right mind at the time, but yes." The Farseeker. The Far Ranger, unfortunately, is not likely to survive such a round. Roddick nods and says, "That seems likely. I'm guessing you fine gentlemen will want a larger vehicle than the Arrow for this operation? I don't like losing the Arrow because of its civilian blendability, but..."
I've not heard of this place. I come from a place of trees and forests.
I think our Takba speaks up and he says, "I think an uncle of mine was once employed upon Tatooine. Horrible, horrible place. He said sand gets everywhere."
Gore looks at, thinks about his fur. Indeed, this is not to be a pleasant encounter.
So Dradar responds from his mask, and he says, "So speaking upon vehicles, I understand we have been given several options. Have you considered the matter? It sounds we've been briefed preliminary on the operation. Sounds like we will be fighting bandits, mostly."
If we're giving the Arrow up, I think we should go for something heavier. The Fortress, I believe. Mobile Fortress, I remember saying might be. And that seems like we may be in agreement for this particular operation. So normally I do not pretend.
It's essentially the Imperial upgrade of a saber. It doesn't have like a name aside from like the TX-130T Imperial fighter tank. You can call it the saber. Notably, you would be able to still carry several speeder bikes. And I think the saber would be a very quick way of getting around, like as opposed to the rest of your transport. The only thing that would be faster than the saber would be the arrow. Yeah, it's the only option, unfortunately, that's not in the rules. It's probably not that fast.
Which of these vehicles can I actually fit in?
That's a very good question. You could squeeze into the arrow.
So like
You could probably fit into the floating fortress. Not necessarily easily, but you could definitely fit in there.
Could sit in the gun turret on the Arrow, hanging half out of it. So which vehicle do you opt for? It sounds like that if we want any kind of mobility, we'll want the Arrow or the tank, but I honestly think of the Arrow as more likely to be better for general police work. I think we should either nod and I'll say it depends, I guess, on what we need. We might want to take the fortress and some bikes if we can.
Is the fortress able to carry the bikes with it?
You know, it's big enough to where you might be able to rig some meshing on the side of the thing to, like, maybe attach the bikes
Or
to
a
the
rack
side.
or something?
But, it would be pretty difficult. Like, it's definitely not meant for them. You might be, like, the problem is you can't attach them to the top because that's where the turret is. It would, like, you could do it, but it would interfere with the turret. I will say,
like maybe
the
a bracket
stats-
on each side or
The
something.
stats for the in comparison to the arrow for the floating fortress, and I'll actually bring up the saber too. One second. I've linked the pictures at least, and I will describe to you the general specifications. So, in terms of speed, the arrow is definitely the fastest. The arrow goes roughly 400 kmh. Has a maximum ground altitude of 4 meters. You guys have that grenade launcher on the back. Unfortunately, you never got the modified laser cannon on it. I think that was something you guys had talked about at one time and never seen come to fruition. You guys have the arrow has basically a driver and a co-pilot up front, a passenger seat. Then it's got 4 seats in the back, and then counting the gunner, that's an additional person. So you can technically hold 7 people.
We also have a prison cell in it, don't we, for 2 people?
Yeah, you guys got rid of most of, I guess, half of your cargo capacity, replaced the trunk with essentially like a prison lockdown thing, where imagine the seats sort of for a roller coaster almost. Those are like essentially have been grafted into the back of your trunk, so you can shove prisoners into the trunk and like lock them down. You can hold, I think, 3 medium-sized people very uncomfortably in your trunk space. You have consumables for a day, and it's got roughly 400 kilograms left of cargo capacity. As far as the fighter tank goes, it is 8.2 meters long as opposed to 8.1 of the arrow, so it's just a tiny. It's roughly the same length. It travels at roughly 200 kmh, but it can boost its speed to over 320. So it doesn't go anywhere near as fast as the arrow, roughly half the speed, but it can temporarily boost its speed. It's got dual heavy laser cannons, a beam cannon turret, and like missile launchers. I'm not looking at the statted one. I'm taking the stats from Wikipedia right now. So there might be a little bit of a difference, but like it's much more heavily armed. It's only got a pilot and a gunner, but it does list the capacity for, and I'm not sure how, for passengers. I'm trying to look into that. Apparently, it's supposed to list 5 passengers that might be riding on the exterior. If anybody's played Halo, it's likely that you might be able to ride on the little nacelles on the side. There's probably like some handholds and some kind of seats on the side there, so you might be able to ride on there. I don't think there's like any integrated bay. I'm trying to do a little bit more research into that. There's not a whole lot of images. Yeah. It's got a very limited cargo capacity, only 100 kilograms. And again, 1 day of supply. The floating fortress, much less information that I have. It's double the length of either of the others. It's 17.4 meters. It has a maximum speed of 200. Altitude is half. It's like only 2 meters, but it's got 2 heavy blaster cannons on it. It has a crew of 2 plus 2 gunners. So I guess those 2 cannons are actually on 2 different turrets. And it can have 10 passengers. So you can have like a total of 14 people if you're using both crew and both gunners. And it has a metric tons worth of cargo capacity. Yeah, 2,000 pounds. 200. So it's actually 7 kilometers an hour faster than your typical saber tank, unless the saber tank is boosting. Then the saber tank is much faster.
Personally,
I would say the saber is
I like
much
the
more
floating
maneuverable.
fortress. Bigger guns, more cargo capacity. maybe a bit.
Yeah,
But
it's good.
nonetheless, if this place is hazardous, as you all say, more firepower cannot go wrong.
Between the fortress and the arrow, I think those seem to be our best options for this op.
They don't mention shield generators. I'm honestly still in the process of statting these things from the book, but right now it's not listing a shield generator. Let me do a brief search. It doesn't say anything for the floating fortress, so unfortunately there's nothing I can look up to actually determine that from the book. The fighter tank might have one.
Yeah,
It's kind of dubious.
It would probably be that.
I keep looking at the floating fortress thinking it's like an RV with guns.
I actually have a better picture I can give you in a second after I look this up. It's good for profile.
It looks like a Winnebago
Anyway, which
with
handout
guns
is
on
it in?
top. It floats.
Which handout is this in? I know I've seen it before. I was not sure where it is.
Not in a handout right now.
Ah, okay. Oh, okay. I see it. Sorry about that.
All right, yeah, here is probably the best closest three-dimensional image in terms of what the turret placement looks like.
Looks pretty solid. Radical. Radical split the vote between that and the arrow. Whichever one wins out, he'll be happy with.
So the fighter tank does have shields. It's actually just 5 though. It's got a very, very light shield rating. Essentially just enough to absorb like part of a hit. So I think Dreadar is like, oh, I really wanted to test that thing out. Like he's looking at the schematics for the saber, but he's like, but if you think we're gonna need the troop transport capability, obviously the fortress can probably bring down whatever we're going towards. You say that
We've
now.
got backup.
I think.
Speaking of missiles, I only have a 1. I might need to requisition a few more before we leave.
I will offer to assist walking him through the process if I can assist him requisitioning some gear. Show Gore the ropes, how it's done around here.
Gore, by the way, you did get that training in bureaucracy.
Okay, good.
So,
Yes.
are all
System,
you are
system or no?
you all agreed on the floating fortress?
Floating fortress, I'm good with for this time, but I'll probably tell the techs they take the arrow off. Don't be loaning that out to any of their ships now. We'll be back for it.
I think they say they can't guarantee anything, but they'll try.
I'll look and I'll say, yeah, I'm quite attached to that vehicle. Just a comment. Speaking of which, I'll make sure to go in and clear it out of any of the inventory items to transfer over to the new vehicle. Product nods and says, if we were going to most planets, it's quite an asset, but we certainly couldn't roll this down the streets of Coruscant. So. Product nods and says, well, yep,
But yeah,
seems like a good bet.
Roddick, if you would introduce me to the requisitions officer.
There's plenty of Jawas to run over.
Can I assist? Can I assist Gore with his role?
Yeah, you can try to assist Gore with his role. Give me a bureaucracy.
I'm going to show him the ropes and who to talk to around here, that sort of thing. Possibly lessons learned of what not to say.
That would be how Roddick gets through bureaucracy. Okay, I've learned not to do this from experience.
Yeah, that's pretty much my process.
Alright, Gore would like to requisition 2 power packs, 2 light concussion missiles, and the parts to missileize 2 grenades.
Is there a light concussion missile as opposed to the typical ones?
The one this thing shoots is light concussion missile.
Okay. Yeah. Alright, give me your roll with a +2 for Roddick's help.
Oh, that's 2. 13.
I think like the person's like, you want what?
A light concussion missile.
What are you doing? Like going to fight the Empire?
You never know when you need to bring a ship down.
I think like you hear him like talking to somebody. He's like, I think we have an insane person aboard. Like more insane than that Roddick character.
Gorgeous scowls a bit at him. He looks intimidating.
Yeah, so I think you don't get I think like you don't really navigate the channels, unfortunately, to get the sign off for the like them basically requisitioning the concussion missiles for you. You do get the parts to make your own. He's like, if you can make these yourself, fine. Yeah, that's fine. So you get some you get the requisition for the parts. And if you want to order your own, you definitely can. They'll put that order in for you, but they definitely won't pay for the concussion missiles right now, I don't think.
Very well. I'll put the order through for one of my own then.
He just shrugs. He's like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't shoot down TIE fighters for a living. Just shrugs.
Alright, so if I buy one for 800 credits, and you said they would pay for the weaponized parts?
Yeah,
they're 250 each.
Yeah, just go ahead and give yourself 2 of them.
Okay.
And your armory droid can certainly help you with that.
Yeah. Very well, thank you. He kind of like growls around his tusks.
Yeah, I think like the guy just like shrieks a little bit and closes the door, like the little window.
I seem to have made an impression upon these. officers.
So, I think the day, like the next couple of days go by as you guys are preparing to leave. And you're stocking things up. It takes them like a day to get the floating fortress ready, but eventually they do. Gets loaded up onto your ship.
Probably tell Gore all about the Mandalorian VIP club offer, and maybe he should call up and get himself a nuke grenade.
I have nowhere near the funds required for such a thing right now, Roddick.
Roddick sighs and says that I feel your pain. I have 2 free weapon mounts.
I can barely afford the concussion missiles.
Roddick nods.
But I have thought one day perhaps taking these parts and putting them on a thermal detonator that I hear exists somewhere. That would be a weapon.
Roddick nods and says, that's something I have considered. Perhaps I can help you with that project sometime.
Alas, these thermal detonators are both rare, illegal, and
Well,
so...
perhaps we could get a special clearance for you to have one, Gore, after this operation.
But very destructive.
I'm sure they'll make some exceptions for you after we've proven your worth.
Perhaps.
Hold my arm up.
All right, so at the end of the week, everybody's finally set in the ship. Any conversations you've had about the logistics of the operation, like what your actual orders are to go out there, we can retroactively have if you have questions, and just say they occurred during these days. And yeah, you're getting ready to leave. At the same time, a bunch of press, basically like press ships, have shown up in the system, ready for the departure of the Farseeker. And as they are actually heading out the same day that you guys are. I think the sector chief calls you in for like a last minute farewell, like, don't fuck things up. Just go there, deal with the pirates. They don't have much of a legal system there, so deal with them as you can. We're giving you some firepower for a reason. Nobody's going to care if these guys go missing, to be honest, on this backwater dust ball.
Don't worry, if things go really badly, we might come back with a fully functional battle station next time.
He just shakes his head. It's like smartass. And he says, get ready to depart. We'll be leaving within the hour, and so will you.
I go nod and say, good luck to you on your operation. And I'll look to the others and say, we ready?
So I think Locke has some calculations to do. Is Agent B going to be piloting for the Far Ranger, or are you going to be leaving that up to somebody else?
I'm guessing somebody else would probably be more skilled than I.
Well, you're trained in it, right? That's like literally one of two steps.
I'm not focused in it, though.
Yeah, but like you don't have to be focused to be a pilot.
So did somebody paint a giant Sector Ranger crest on the top of the Star Destroyer?
Oh yeah, there's one on either side, like right over here. The crest that you see in the top left. Feel free. So
yeah, I guess I can if there isn't a better pilot on board.
Well, the vehicle expert is like tier 1, not tier 2 in terms of he's trained, but he's not focused. So like he's decent with it, but he's not like it. Yeah, like it's not You don't have to reasonably assume to be focused in order to be the person doing something. So you can pilot, or he can take over it. I think maybe you're probably the person to do it though.
I'll do it.
How is your use computers? I think maybe N52 is probably still doing the hyperdrive calculations.
I am trained in it. I'm not focused.
Let me bring up his sheet.
Should have a plus 14.
I have an 11.
Okay, so N52 is definitely doing it.
Sherlock, I have programmed the hypercomputer for jump. This is like that time on around the asteroids of Ceta 3. When we were ambushed by pirates. This continues forever. Talk about many subjects.
So, is Gito doing your hyperdrive calculations, Locke? Okay, all right. This is interesting. So, so your hyperdrive calculations are going to fall both to GM operated NPCs. They are at least fully statted, though. All right, so we'll figure
Funko
this
could
out.
assist, though.
Yeah, could. I think that might be possible. It's not talked about mechanically. I think, yeah, you can maybe pass the coordinates. It might make the check for the coordinating vessel a little bit more difficult, because you're not just calculating your own coordinates. Like, you have to calculate for the coordinates of like the nearby space as well. But I think maybe instead of Gito doing the check, it would just be N52, and he would calculate for both vessels and send it to Gito. It'd, like, pass out the coordinates to any vessels that needed to be included. So he's like, essentially, instead of calculating the coordinates for your single vessel, it's calculating the coordinates for like a small area around your ship instead, which is a little bit harder. Yeah. We definitely can. So,
how are these stats on the Far Ranger skill made up?
So yes, we will have to get you sorted with the piloting stats, because Marlowe... I think actually AJB is already on the list.
On there, but I'm just wondering how do these actually come from my sheet? Okay.
Yeah.
Pilot is 12. 11.
Alright, you guys are currently at Denon, which is in the inner rim, and you are heading to the outer rim. Inner to outer carries a +3. That's not a very difficult check. Tatooine is not a very well-traveled planet, but people still go there all the time that want to stay off the radar, so it's probably... G2 has a pilot score of 1, computer score of 12. Mechanics is where he shines. 14. So it is. It's probably been more than a week. So DC 23 -4 for the nav computer, so 19. Hazard die is going to be a D8. Five. That's +4. So back up to 23. And I'm going to get a roll for Gito to assist. I think assist just has to beat a 10, right? Yeah, alright, so he gets +2 on his check, so they're busy talking. I think even N52 is like tired of hearing Gito on the other end. And I'm going to give a +2 circumstance bonus, given that you're like linked in with the Farseeker and like able to use their traffic control as well. Oh, I put a plus in there. So that's actually 6, 20, 22. So one shy. Okay, so that's going to be a mishap table. We'll get to that in a second. So, yeah, we'll definitely get to that scene in a second. So, so you guys are pulling out of the. That's so unfortunate. He doesn't have any force points. So, so you guys are pulling out of the bay. You only failed by 1. You're pulling out of the bay and getting ready to leave. And there's, I think the Farseeker itself is pulling out of its docking cradle, and you can see that it's kind of surrounded by press ships that are covering it as it's starting to move out of the planet, and it's probably doing its own hyperdrive calculations. As you are, or both ships are linking up for their own hyperdrive calculations. There is a comms message coming in that I think N52 is briefly interrupted by. Roddick, would you be on the bridge while Bunko and N52 are getting ready to send the ship out?
Yeah, most definitely. Probably be on the bridge during the initial undocking here.
Okay. So, yeah, there's a comm message coming in, and N52 says, in binary, Officer Concord, I have a direct comm message coming to you from a ship inbound. Would you care to receive it on your private comlink?
Pipe it through to my helmet package.
So, there is a ship coming in from out of system, burning in pretty quickly. And you hear the voice of Halleck saying, "Oh, I'm glad I caught you. I heard you guys were in the process of leaving."
Actually, before I answer him, do we have a second ship docked up right now? Like what do we have docked to the Far Ranger?
Nothing.
Interesting. I would have probably seen if we could get at least a TIE fighter on there. I didn't think about it, but yeah, I'll definitely respond to Halleck and say that. Didn't think we would see you again this soon. We were just on our way out.
I see your docking cradles are a little empty. Do you think you could use an extra hand?
Our fleet always could use an extra ship. We'll leave the other one free in case we need to take something in impound. Come on aboard. We'll clear the dock for you.
All right, so
I'll motion to B and say, get ready to accept an incoming ship on the docking port.
So, the familiar shape of the Star Rider comes in, and I think you notice its IFF signal is slightly changed. It's actually registering as an official Sector Ranger vessel as it pulls up, and it docks to one of the cradles. And several moments later, I think eventually there's like a request for the opening of the external hatch.
Let him on, Agent B. I'm gonna head on down and greet our new guest.
Okie dokie. Push the dock open button.
All right, so yeah, you guys head down to maybe deck B, and head to the opposite lift, which is the only one that goes up to the hatch. And in unsealing his helmet after exiting the hatch is the familiar form of Halleck. Although he's sporting a Sector Ranger identification on his armor, and he gives you Bunko and Roddick like a nod, and he says, "Sorry for the last minute. Just came in from out of system. Didn't realize everything was heading so quickly." He has a left arm. It's in armor. It doesn't look bionic like from the exterior, so it's hard to tell.
The motion over and say, "I'm glad to see you did finally do something about that and got it fixed."
It took a little while.
And I say, "Well, are you coming on board permanently, or just coming to see us off?"
If I could join you, I'd certainly like to. I got some last-minute clearance from the sector chief. I've been out of contact with a while.
We definitely have room for you.
And he comes aboard and he says, "I'll try to explain things. I know I'm holding you up. Sorry again for the last minute. That's quite a story."
We have a long trip ahead of us. Why don't you join us on the bridge?
Yeah, so he does so. And I think with that, we find out what exactly the hyperspace mishap table rolls. Actually, if it's a fail by one, it might not actually roll.
What's the pilot bonus on M52? Get the chance. Not super critical or anything.
Is 1. Nope. He was, and then he got. Oh yeah. What is this? I think it was actually stealth. Okay, I'll have to fix that. I still have stealth on his sheet. Actually, I'm not able to find anything about that. So does a brave soul care to roll a D100? Maybe we don't make it to Tatooine. $61. Hyperdrive failure. With a nav computer, the ship is returned to real space at a random point on the journey. So at some point, you guys are going to erupt back into real space between here and Tatooine. But until then, Yeah, it will. Because you guys were sharing calculations. Now, that's actually probably a good reason to share calculations instead of both of you calculating separately. Because at least you'll end up in the same place most of the time.
Are we there already, Bridge?
We seem to have come out early.
Agent B? What's going on up there?
This is going to be a 3-day trip, and I think it's going to be a couple days before you guys actually drop out of hyperspace, not at your destination. So it's probably, unfortunately for Locke, you're stuck aboard the Sand Panther with only Gito. I think this might be the primary reason why the stormtroopers didn't want to ride aboard your ship. Yeah. For anybody who doesn't know, Gito's droid model has the too talkative droid trait. Literally, they talk too much.
That's awesome.
So does anybody have anything they want to do? Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, God.
I think Hal has plenty of time to explain himself before we fall out of our hyperspace.
Yeah, definitely. So, Hal explains that he's been spending the last, I think, like after leaving, like probably 4.5-5 months ago, he went looking for a way to try to get his arm back without losing his connection to the Force. Like anybody who knows, I guess, anything about the Force or bionics knows that if you replace your arm with an actual inorganic prosthesis, you get negative penalties on your use the Force rolls, and he was searching for some way to maybe not have that happen. And he heard rumor of the Yuzhong Vong and their ability to their ability in biotech. They were not a thing, in his time. And he spent like a couple months looking for the Yuzhong Vong. Yuzhong Vong biotech is very much considered illegal in many parts of the galaxy. The prosthesis is a little bit grayish, but he eventually found a shaper that was willing to grow him a new arm. I think when he peels off his glove and it rolls up his sleeve, it is very obviously not a human arm. It's shaped the same. It's got 5 fingers, but it's a Yuzhong Vong biotech arm, and it's organic. And I think he went through like a month of that regrowing, and then he unfortunately discovered that because the Yuzhong Vong are immune to the Force, he still ended up losing part of his connection to the Force. In game mechanics terms, Yuzhong Vong prosthetics still apply the -1 use the Force penalty. After that, he was struggling to find a purpose for himself when he was actually contacted by Sector Chief Kron, who was trying to do a little bit of research about what exactly happened aboard the Star Destroyer, specifically with REYLA and the quote Sith. And after some communications and hearing what Roddick had reported about Hal, to varying degrees that he had been a help. And apparently, like, many people had reported that he had helped, but like they had been very vague in how he had helped. um, he was offered a like a slot in like the most recent Sector Ranger training academy class, and without an actual bounty hunter license in this millennium, and without any Jedi ordered to join, and without a Padawan to train, he decided to say what the hell, and took the sector chief up on his offer, and was just recently out of system, and was desperately trying to make it back before you guys got assigned somewhere else.
Well, I'm glad to see that you were made a recovery from your wounds.
Yeah,
They were most grievous.
he nods and he says, "Thank you, Gore."
Sorry to hear about the side effects, but I'm glad you have an arm again.
Yeah, he says, "You know, it's not that bad. I'll live with it."
I was gonna say, there's other things you can do besides, well, your special talents.
Mayhap
You're
overcoming
quite well without them.
this will make you stronger.
He nods to you, Gore.
Products arm probably just gonna whir and clack as it turns around. So, very different kind of arm than Hal.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an ironic kind of mirror image. Like, yours is on the other side of your body, and it's a very much mechanical, huge industrial thing, and his is it's on the left side, and it's sort of like this elegant bioengineered thing that looks decidedly alien.
So how much longer till we get to Tatooine, Agent B? I believe we have a planet to clean up.
I read off what the estimated time of arrival is.
Yeah, you have like another day, and I think like maybe 30 seconds after you say that, we hear the hyperdrive cut out, whoop, 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 and you guys drop back into space.
Is that supposed to happen?
I don't see Tatooine, Agent B.
You're receiving a
Yeah, so I think N52 says,
hello.
is patching that through.
Have the droid do a diagnostic.
So yeah, he does a diagnostic and seems sure that you guys left on the right trajectory, but there was something wrong with your calculations. You were almost there, but there seems to be like an asteroid somewhere like 600 million kilometers ahead that tripped your gravitational sensors, and it dropped you out of hyperspace that was not accounted for, and you're going to have to jump back into hyperspace.
Alright.
So with that, G2 attempts the help roll again. And I'm gonna reduce difficulty since you're significantly closer to your destination. And here comes N52. Oh yeah, and you guys are once again back on track.
We won't be inside of Tatooine. I just had to shoot a glance to point out.
Tatooine! We're going to Tatooine!
You made the calculations, you didn't even know that?
I pushed the button.
All right. And a day later, in the Arcanif sector, you guys emerge around perhaps the most worthless ball of dirt in the galaxy. There's some ship traffic in the system, but it's not very notable. And you're picking up like a mostly lifeless rock down there. That I think, like at initial glance, you're like, why is anybody even living down there? Or maybe how is anybody living down there? There's like no water, nothing.
Well, this looks like a fine place. Of course, used to like very green planets.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, you end up in orbit, and like unusually, you don't get any hails at all. Like there's no traffic satellites directing you to starports. There's no there are no like advertisement satellites. There's just I think you get like maybe a couple ships moving about in system, a couple moving about the planet. There's one that's like flittering around the asteroid belt. And yeah, you have arrived at Tatooine. And I think
Roddick's gonna tap
Yeah, go
on
ahead.
the screen and say, perhaps we should land somewhere in one of these canyon networks. I don't think we should use the local starport.
I think Caloran says, well, it seems the person who contacted the Rangers by the name of Zisk is I guess the mayor of Bestine, former Imperial capital. We could land there. I know we at least probably want to talk to them, or maybe we can land out somewhere in the outskirts. Although, I think he's checking his data pad. They were quick to inform us that there was a danger of nomads and raiders the further away you get from the settlements. So I think N52 puts it through.
Just discussing that now. How about we land in the canyon, take the crawler out, keep our ships on the down low. We have the same risk at any sort of a actual landing facility. Thinking about it for a second and say the townspeople sound more dangerous. Is there a spaceport at Bestine?
Spaceport's a real generous term. There's
It's
like
a
a
cured
bowl.
landing pad with actual gardens, is what I mean.
There's like a bowl with like some stucco walls around it that's like embedded in the sand. That used to be like the Imperial Moff's like or the Imperial Governor's like landing site. Like there used to be a starport here. Most of it's just like flatland now. There definitely is like still like a docking bay or two. Guarded is another kind of relative term. Yeah, like you this was advertised as being lawless, Roddick. Like there might be a mayor and a sheriff in some of the settlements. You were basically tasked here to maybe bring law to Tatooine.
We need a place to keep our ships that's not going to get them jacked when we turn our backs. Even if we leave some people behind to guard them, we need to make sure that they have a way to evacuate. That's for 2 different vessels. Where do you suggest we land? Well, we can land at Bestine. I'll try to have as many people on board as possible, keep security on the ship while we're gone.
What does everybody else think of this plan? I think everybody's in the briefing room, or except for Locke, who's coming in over the comms.
Looking at Bunko's comment. Anyway, the spaceport would be the more civilized place to land, but then you're at the mercy of the local toughs. Alternatively, land in a desert.
You do know that while
I assume find the ship? I'm with Gore personally that we have those both options, but
I think
I'm open.
B, since you rolled really high on your knowledge check before, you probably know a little bit. Bestine, everybody knows that Bestine is like is the town who contacted the Rangers, ostensibly at the behest of several other towns. Like they've been raiding other towns, and they got together and they decided to contact the Rangers. You don't exactly know which towns got together, but Bestine is the mayor of Bestine is the one that contacted you. They have like a small landing, landing facilities, but Bunko, you do know that there is one place on the planet that does have at least a meager starport. From your contact, the settlement of Mos Eisley is very much a rough and tumble place, but it does have like an actual starport. With bays and everything, and I think your contact had said that like a lot of wanted fugitives, a lot of people who just want to stay away from like are in hiding, people who want to forget go to Mos Eisley, people down on their luck. It might be a very rough place, but it's one of the only places where people can like safely land ships. So although it might be rough, they tend to take the security of the ships that are there very seriously, because if they didn't, then Mos Eisley would just dry up.
So I would recommend Mos Eisley, and I remind them that we're here to police. So if somebody does try to jack your stuff, Roddick, we can arrest them or kill them.
Presuming we're in range. Mos Eisley sounds like it might be acceptable. We could take the crawler from there and leave a skeleton crew behind to keep an eye on things. And we probably leave that Imperial pilot / driver that we have with us in case we need a pickup.
I think you say that, and Dreadar just says, "Oh God, is this how everything's gonna be? I can fly the ship, and so I get left behind."
Hopefully not, Raynar, but we are short on pilots right now.
He looks like pleadingly towards Calorn, who like shrugs and looks back to you, Roddick.
Could fly the ship if we needed to.
I think he says, Roddick, it does seem to be a little bit of a waste of manpower. I mean, if there is somebody to fly it, he's as good as any. But if we're gonna be here for days or weeks, it seems kind of a waste. The ship. I mean, what do you typically do when you go somewhere? Do you always leave someone to like stand by, like right at the controls? He kind of gives you like a furrowed brow.
You never know when you might need a starship.
Don't you? I mean, We have M96 for that, and you've got several droids on board. They can at least warn us that someone's attempting to board. And I believe, isn't he a security model?
Can he fly the ship at least capable enough to pick us up?
Flying it, he shrugs. I think.
How long would it take them, the ship, to get from Mos Eisley to Bastine?
10 minutes,
And how long
12
would it
minutes,
take the
15
crawler?
minutes. Upwards of an hour.
Part of the reason Radek's kind of like talking about potentially leaving the ship behind because it's just so much faster, or somebody in the ship in case we need it. And if we need an evac, we're not going to get that evac with the crawler. It could be very dangerous. But
Yeah, I think Calorn nods and he says, he looks to Dradar and says, Dradar, it's a sensible point. And the Caldor just sighs.
We train in 57 to fly the ship for future operations.
He already is.
N52, yeah, he is. It was just an error on the sheet. He can technically fly. He's just not a very good pilot. He can pilot the ship. You also, I will note that M96 is a security droid. So although he's not a battle droid, he is able to at least lightly defend the ship if someone is able to break in.
Radical nod and said that, well, if we can set it up so perhaps we can at least get one droid for potential piloting. Maybe we can bring everyone with us then.
You also have had Zeta at times use the ship's guns.
That is true. Zeta can definitely gun. I just was worried about piloting. So yeah, I'll say that if we can get the droids to keep security on the ship.
I think Dradar. I think the corporal just says, Dradar, just stay. It's obvious that that we want somebody competent.
I think if he wants
waiting
to
with
come,
the ship.
he should come.
To exclude your man, sir. We're just trying to figure out what to do with our ship.
If we're going to be here for weeks, it might not be advisable. But
Perhaps
if we're looking for quick support,
perhaps rotate through those available to pilot. Give everybody a chance to get off the ship.
just be like immediately bristle at that, because I think those able to pilot is like 3 people.
I think leaving the droid as a backup is fine.
Droids can evacuate the ship. We can all go. Unless you want to just have us pick up after we've checked the situation out. Your call.
There's also the matter of if they do let somebody steal the ship from the starport, they're going to have a lot of explaining to do. I think Halleck says if they manage to get it off the ground, the Farseeker is just a call away. They might get away with the ship, but Mos Eisley's probably not going to be very eager to piss the Rangers off right now. Especially since the planet's asking for our help.
I just want to make sure someone's ready to come get us if we need help. But if we have our droids in position for that, I think we should get loaded and get going.
So you guys resolved to go land at Mos Eisley?
Yep.
I'm trying to think whether or not a ship can fly through the atmosphere with another ship docked to a cradle exterior. We might have to detach Hal's ship and have him fly it down through the atmosphere.
Probably very much depends on the ships, I would guess. I mean, I could see certain ships doing it, certain ships not. Yep.
Yeah. All right, so I think Roddick probably you realize this, and Hal realizes this, and Hal suits up and EVAs back to the ship to detach it for landing purposes. It sounds like you guys are probably going to have to rent either three separate landing bays or like one of their really big ones and all land in the same one, since you've got 3 ships.
Either option is good, acceptable by me. I'll look to B and say, do you want to work that out with the station manager? It sounds more your area of expertise.
Sure. I hail Mos Eisley.
Okay, so it's probably ringing for like a good 20 seconds, and then finally somebody picks up and he's like, yeah, Mos Eisley spaceport. What can I help you with? He sounds like the guy just woke up.
Hey, we have 3 ships here in orbit.
Three ships. Okay.
We're wanting to land at Mos Eisley and wanting to know what you have for a deal of either 3 quarts or a single large.
Yeah. Let me look. We do have several bays available. Three ships. Have you been here before? You're not the Saxian Triumph by any means.
No, we're not.
Okay, all right, good. I think like you can hear him muttering like, "No, don't bother warming up the ion cannons. It's not them." Like to somebody in the background, and
Sounds like this group has trouble often.
and then he says, "We've got a larger bay that might accommodate you. What are the size of your vessels? Having some interference with your scans there as you're coming around the planet."
What are the sizes?
We have 1 Colossus.
It is a gargantuan starfighter. You can just say starfighters for the purpose of telling people that you're flying a starfighter. Say you tell him that, and he says, yeah, we got a bay, bay 14. That'll work. Fee will be 600 credits.
600.
All right.
Is our current monthly expense thing up to date?
Yeah, 2,000.
600 per day or month?
Well, it's 600 to rent the bay, and then it's actually it's not 2,000. I think your ship should be at before I finish. Let me look at the ship. Most notably, this price that this guy is quoting you is absolutely outrageous.
Sounds outrageous to me already, so that's good to know that it wasn't just out of character consideration.
I think he says 600 per week ought to do it.
All right. Do you know of any places over in Bastine that are a better price?
I think he just laughs and he's like, Bastine, yeah, if you want to land out in the desert.
All right. Well, we'll find somewhere else.
Whoa, wait. You don't seriously want to land out by Bastine. Your ship's gonna get jacked by pirates.
You're be jacking my ship right now with the price that you're telling me.
Like, oh, come on. How about 400?
I have no idea what the good price is.
So a typical docking fee is anywhere between like 100 to 200, depending on like the demand of the area for like a single larger ship. It's reasonable to assume for a very big docking area, it might be a little bit larger, like maybe 250 to 300 at most. So like it seems like he was at least doubling, maybe tripling the price. Like maybe he was applying the price per thing docking there.
How about 3?
Give me a persuasion check. The Star Destroyer discount.
I'm gonna do that thingy. Where's it?
Before you roll deception, how are you deceiving him?
I'm telling him that I can come by and meet him in person and stuff like that with some sexy voice.
Oh God. Okay. His attitude changes completely. He's like, well, you do have a nice voice. 300 a week sounds great. Yes. Like he starts giving you the like the landing coordinates for Bay 14, and then he starts giving you like the what end of the starport where his control tower is. And when he gets off his shift, that sort of thing.
Alright. I'll see you soon. Yes, we have.
More ways than one.
I think N52 just like lets out like a really low whistle, like sigh.
Interesting negotiation tactics, Agent B. Do you need anything to prepare for your date when we land?
In Roddick's voice, they say, no.
He just shakes his head.
I shall ready my weapons, but you know of what we will be doing when we first get here.
You can put down that you're at instead of 2,000, 4,000 a month on the Fire Ranger fees.
Since we don't have an inventory screen for our new vehicle, should we just rename the Arrow's inventory screen for the second?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. I'm working on trying to generate stats for that thing since it's not something that's actually in the book.
There's probably some stuff out of the Fire Ranger I'll probably throw in it if we're going to be traveling, like the proximity flares.
Inventory. Floating Fortress. And I will actually try to get you an update on what's been added to the armory before next session, too.
I'll probably adjust this cargo and amend it if it's alright. I'm definitely going to move some stuff over, though. Since it's set here. Nice.
A hive of scum and villainy.
We may end up arresting or filling that planet, Terry prison up after all. I'm going to comment as I look about the town.
Yeah, like you're zooming over, and it's just like an utter cesspool. And yeah, I think you set down in one of the larger bays, probably this one. And I think that's maybe where we will end for the evening.
Copy that. Almost done moving everything over. Hold on.
So I recently upgraded to Roll20 Pro, so we should have faster
nice.
load times. looking to play around with the dynamic lighting system next time we get onto the grid, and everybody is going to have tokens, and we're going to have like a much larger image stockpile. So,
Ooh, that's really cool.
I also have the ability, although I haven't looked into it just yet, to make my own character sheets on Roll20. It's possible that I might be able to duplicate and edit sheets. So there is a possibility that I may be able to come up with a new inventory system for us. Just a possibility.
That would be awesome if you could ban
That would
it,
be
man.
nice.
I'll come up with some XP here. It's our interim episode. I think we're going to have a great deal of fun on Tatooine, where the law is thin and pirates might come over every sand dune. Considering we have a lot of people with heavy weapons and a propensity to use them, it seemed like an ideal place.
Sounds good to me.
There you go. I've rigged up the floating fortresses.
Outside of the settlements, definitely. Inside of the settlements, Mos Eisley, it's real loose. I think there's probably some like slumlords and like some minor warlords essentially that like try to keep order. It's pretty much anarchy in Mos Eisley. In places like Anchorhead and Bastine, Mos Espa, they actually have like township mayors and stuff. Yeah, but Mos Eisley is probably the exception. It's like one of the largest towns here, but it's not like an actual township. It's just like a bunch of buildings that are still here because of the starport, and people still live here because people keep coming to the starport, and there's like no actual governmental structure aside from like a bunch of
enough,
important
Roddick,
people.
your slug thrower ammo is probably popular here.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's definitely good to know.
Yeah, the
Might
Tuscans,
definitely
like pretty much exclusively use projectile rifles. Also, if you were looking for very disturbing cameos, that is the shuttle from Aliens.
That's great. Oh, that's awesome. I never noticed that before.
Hopefully it didn't come with any xenomorphs. Otherwise, the adventure on Tatooine may be a little bit more interesting than planned.
Yeah.
They like heat. They love this place.
Yeah, I think you guys probably like fly out over this Jawa sand crawler on your way in. You just see like Jawas looking up at you as a new hunk of metal.
We should
falls
hire
to
some for our
Tatooine.
tech crew.
Oh god! What happened to our engine? Where is it?
Where'd the engine go?
Oh, did Roddick just punch a Jawa?
Pretty badly too, sadly, but yeah.
Alright, so everybody's gonna get 1200 XP for the day.
$1,200, nice.
Yep, I know we were a little bit light on the action, and by a little bit light I mean I know we didn't have any, but I guarantee you that a day-by-day thing on Tatooine is probably going to be very interesting.
Every bit of XP helps, because I did lose the 500, so it's very good to get some more.
Yeah, so, well, the ship is not something you're necessarily here to get, although I think you're probably told if you can confirm its existence, that would definitely be a very big plus. Essentially your first objective is to try to report to the mayor of Bastine to try to coordinate what exactly, learn exactly what the attacks are about, where they've been coming from, and what the people here really need of you. Oh yeah, that's essentially it. There's supposedly some rumored off-world force that's moved in sometime within the last 6 months to 6 to 7 months, and they've set up shop at somewhere in the region, and they've been raiding, and recently they burned down a couple towns, and it's gotten really bad, and they need some Seven Samurai shit to go down, and they need you guys to come in and clear these guys out. They don't necessarily. When you have blaster rifles, it's possible. So yeah, it's a very loose mission order, and that's that was intentional. You guys had a very focused sort of thing last time. Get the cure, survive. This one's there's problems on Tatooine. They have a specific source, but there's also a bunch of just general assholes on Tatooine you might need to deal with too. This is like Roddick's dreamland. Yeah, but you can find no end of trouble to just shoot in the face here. I anticipate we may be here for weeks.
That sounds really good to me too. Oh, I finished loading the fortress up. I forgot my my box of grenades and bullets from the armory. So
Box of grenades.
Yes. Oh, I thought you said GM.
I think the GM too. I was very confused.
So I think Tatooine will be fun because there are some like small settlements here, so we can get kind of the Wild West vibe. But it's also a very well-known planet, and it's also lawless enough to where if you guys want to go orbitally bombard some people, you can do that, and nobody's gonna bat an eyelash. Like if you guys. Yes, that is the warning. The pirates out here don't have to hide, so they might just have a couple air defense cannons on their roof. Literally lawless. You're actually not too far away from Locke. That's like just a system over. It's very much like Tatooine. There is a Fioran warlord who rules Locke.
That's great. Lock the lock. Alright guys, I will see some of you tomorrow. It was a fun session. I'm definitely looking forward to our further adventures in Tatooine.
I believe.
Yeah, honestly the fortress could work out very well here, actually. We can at least sleep in the fortress. I brought camo netting
Just
with us.
lay me out between the bunks. It'll be okay.
I purchased camo netting before. That might actually come in very handy.
You guys might be operating here a while, so I can see camo netting coming into play.
This is that's I think it's supposed to be like the kind of like basically shift color and stuff, so it's kind of cool. It's good. Camouflage netting 2046 GW. Probably the unpowered one, the very basic one. No, I think that's supposed to be the same one and has different stats if it's powered or unpowered because they're the exact same price and they're in the exact same like listing. I think it's like this is what it does when it's powered and this is what it does when it's not powered. I'm pretty sure that's how it's supposed to be. It's normally like it's +5 stealth when it's not powered, but if you're powering it, it's +10 stealth. Pretty sure that's how it works anyway. I certainly meant to get the active one if there's a difference, but I thought it was the same kind and it just has 2 modes. It'd be nice. We're gonna park out in the desert to cover our fortress with camo netting and try to stay low. Nobody can pick us up by air and blows us away in our sleep. Yeah, that's what I kind of figured. It seems like they're supposed to be the same thing. They're definitely heavy, not something you carry around. They're like vehicle size. They're 40 kg, but which is exactly why I got it, so we can put it over our vehicles if we're gonna extend it out. So it might actually come in handy here. It's perfect for hiding, I believe, a floating fortress. So exactly the kind of thing. Yeah, that is true. Eventually, the batteries will run out, and it'll turn to only a +5 stealth. But still, I'm very glad that we actually brought it along. I didn't expect it to come in handy, but I think it'll be pretty handy here.
It's a pretty obscure vehicle, but it's definitely something the Empire would have had, and I think it's definitely something that suits you guys in particular.
Yeah, I have a feeling that'll be true. Locke seems like he's a lot more gung ho.
Ooh, you guys are gonna like this. Apparently, aside from the twin turret blaster cannons, at night power